The universal popularity of cell phones and video devices of all sorts has resulted in more than merely an epidemic of selfies. It's helped create an exponential increase in the production of independent films. Now no longer the sole domain of high-profile, big-name filmmakers and large studios, these films and their distribution are a billion-dollar industry. With the prospect of access to global markets for theatrical release now within reach of independent filmmakers everywhere, it would seem to be clear sailing for anyone who wants to bring their film and their vision to market. But as in all other fields, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly when navigating indie film distribution options. These are some of the articles that discuss the challenges facing an indie film producer seeking film distribution. No endorsement is implied, and you'll have to do your own due diligence. This film is a report on my investigation into one particular indie film distributor, Adler and Associates Entertainment in Los Angeles. I will present my findings and my reasons for this investigation. You can then draw your own conclusions. We're looking at excerpts from a discussion I had with a European filmmaker who contacted me in regards to my investigation. I'll refer to him as Mr. X. He claims that Adler told him his film had made $12,000, but that their marketing expenses were $21,000. So, according to Adler, Mr. X actually owes them $9,000. Since Adler didn't provide him with a breakdown of those so-called expenses, this raises a lot of red flags. And here's an email from another filmmaker who calls himself ambiguous. He's worried that I might be someone named Mark Belasco from Adler trying to shake him down for more money, etc. It also turns out that there were a number of filmmakers who'd been discussing Adler and Associates Entertainment in this online indie film forum. Many of the comments drew attention to Adler's questionable business practices. In all of my own research, I didn't find, nor did I hear from even one filmmaker who actually made money from doing business with Adler. And despite my invitation, Adler executives refused to be interviewed for this report to address or rebut these questions and claims. This is especially interesting to me because of my own experiences with Adler. So here's the backstory on how I came to do this investigative expose. In 2008, my friend Jack and I made a film called The Silent Revolution of Truth, a documentary on the Billy Meyer UFO contacts.
Because of an extraterrestrial called Svath, whom I got to know in 1942.
Not long afterwards, we got a call from a man named Mark Belasco, asking to meet and discuss distribution possibilities with him. Yes, he's the same man that Mr. X was concerned about. Belasco said it would cost us $5,000 for him to distribute our film. We declined that offer. About a year later, my daughter and I made a film called Breaking the Silence.
He used to tell me, please call the cops, you know, and they'll come and arrest me and I'll spend a night in jail and I'll come back and I'll beat you even more for that.
And I just remember thinking, how can a little girl want to kill herself so young?
It's an inspiring film about 5 courageous young women who all overcame various kinds of abuse in their own lives. Breaking the Silence came to the attention of Jeremy Stevens, the executive producer of the hit TV show Everybody Loves Raymond. Jeremy liked the film quite a bit. He wanted to help, and the next thing I knew, I was getting a call from Maria Grasso, the then newly appointed president of OWN, the Oprah Winfrey Network. She too found the film to be powerful and important and said that she wanted to acquire it for the network. Then, in one of those Hollywood twist of fate stories, things changed at that network, and the film deal for Breaking the Silence didn't happen. A few years later, I made And Did They Listen?, another documentary on the Billy Meyer UFO case. And just about a year after that, Mark Belasco called me again regarding these two award-winning films. He said he was working with Adler now, and he promised a much better deal than what he could offer before. There'd be no money down, nothing to pay. Mistakenly, as it turns out, I signed those agreements. And after consulting with attorneys a little bit too late also, I unfortunately learned that these were the worst contracts they had ever seen. Nothing to laugh about, but let's detail that just a little bit. For instance, specifically, the 12-year term asked for in this contract from Adler is actually several years longer than the industry standard. The audit and delivery fees were, according to the attorneys, pretty much unheard of. The out-of-pocket expenses and other allowed and detailed expenses that you see here could ultimately allow Adler to deduct as much as $65,000 from each of these films at their discretion. When I raised my concerns to Adler about many of these terms, they minimized my concerns and said that my films would be so successful and make so much money that these kind of costs would be insignificant. And here you see that the first category in this rights clause is theatrical release. Adler had led me to believe that what they were going to go for, of course, was theatrical release of these two films as the primary focus. Neither theatrical release nor any other form of distribution occurred, other than Adler putting the films up on Amazon and some other smaller platforms. As I later learned, during my research, there are what are called film aggregators who claim to do the same thing, put your film up on Amazon, for around $1,000. Marie Adler would later claim that she spent $80,000 promoting and marketing my films, for which she offered zero evidence. In these contracts, Marie Adler also demanded EP credits, that stands for executive producer credits, which I had to agree to. The EP or executive producer has very specific roles in the production of a film. But the fact is that Adler never performed any of these functions in either of my films. Here, in her autobiography, Adler describes herself as a mover and shaker in the financial world, as well as an extraordinary pearl. It wasn't until later, when our disagreements arose, that I looked on Adler's IMDb page. There, she claimed EP credits on over 200 films. Now that's more than 6 times as many EP credits as George Lucas of Star Wars has. Again, although she claimed these credits on my films, Marie Adler never fulfilled any of the duties of an EP, nor did she fund or raise funds for the productions, etc. How could she, since her company acquired the films after they were already produced? It's even spelled out in their own contract that I, as the producer, am completely responsible for all these costs. Another contractual contradiction was this exclusivity clause. While it allowed the filmmaker to buy DVD copies of their own film as the producer, though none were ever actually produced by Adler, this clause additionally prevents the filmmaker from selling them. Now, the Cannes Film Festival is one of the world's premier film festivals. And this year there was a very newsworthy event with 82 prominent women highlighting the Me Too movement. As soon as I learned about this event, I emailed Adler and told him to contact the participants and bring my film, Breaking the Silence, about women who overcame abuse, to the attention of these 82 women and their worldwide audience. What did they do? Because I didn't even get a response from my email. I learned that Adler isn't so much of an actual film distributor, but rather a company that just packages up numerous films together to make volume deals. One writer referred to them as a third-floor company because at these festivals and film markets, they're separate from the major film distributors and away from where the real film deals go down. This is the photo that Adler sent me to prove that they market the films. What we see here is a small room with a bunch of little film posters stuck up on a wall. The poster for my film, And Did They Listen, is there, behind a chair, which certainly doesn't look like effective marketing to me. Now, despite my numerous emails encouraging them to effectively promote my films, these very timely films, Adler furnished me no evidence that they ever did so. I also found out that Adler isn't even listed among the top 800 film distributors in the world. The more I investigated, the clearer it became that I had been continually misled by Adler with false claims, misrepresentations, and business practices that were deceptive and unethical. When I received the latest quarterly reports on the income from the sales of my films on Amazon, I was shocked by the expenses that Adler claimed and were deducting from my income. The most startling thing was that since I'd begun to confront them, suddenly over $10,000 in new expenses, supposedly for marketing my films, appeared in these reports. As you can see, these reports show that Adler is now claiming almost $30,000 in combined expenses for my two films. But with the films up on Amazon for over a year, there couldn't be any new, legitimate marketing expenses. So I requested a detailed breakdown of these expenses from Adler as per our agreement. But surprise, surprise, this was the response I got. That's right, Adler refused to provide the requested information. Even when I had an attorney request the financial breakdown and the quarterly reports, Adler didn't comply. In comparison, I should point out that two distributors put versions of The Silent Revolution of Truth up on Amazon, free of any charges, and they both continue to pay us royalties on them. A very different business ethic indeed. Shortly after the Cannes Film Festival, Marie Adler sent this email to all her clients. In it, you can see she talked about a special relationship with Amazon that supposedly few distributors had. But now when we look at this information, we see that such statements are red flags and that appear to be stretching the truth. Additionally, Marie Adler promoted a remarkable new DVD distribution deal. However, unless we're speaking about a major film with well-known stars, etc., the overall DVD market is rapidly diminishing. Should Adler actually put these DVDs out, they'd most likely end up in discount bins with all of the money probably going to Adler due to their creative accounting and unsubstantiated expenses. Because I was dissatisfied with their endless hype and empty promises and feeling trapped in Adler's self-serving contract, I wanted to end this one-sided business relationship. I wrote Adler what I called an invitation to do the right thing, to terminate our agreement, to return my films, and the income they've earned off of them, from which I've never seen even one penny. Their response to this was underwhelming, non-existent in fact. Actually, it wasn't until I informed them of my intention to interview Marie Adler and her accomplices for inclusion in this expose that the fur really started to fly. First, Marie Adler circulated this email in which she openly threatens to tie me up in litigation and sabotage any showing, distribution, sales of my films, etc., including a potential showing of Breaking the Silence on PBS. I had submitted Breaking the Silence to a PBS film festival, and they responded with interest in showing the film. In the email, Marie Adler clearly indicates that she will sabotage the PBS showing as well. Then suddenly, she had an attorney from the high-powered Glazer-Weil law firm in LA trying to pounce on me, first with a cease and desist order, then with a temporary restraining order, which is usually something a person takes out to deal with a dangerous person who's trying to do them real physical harm, not to interview them. The only thing I ever did was to tell Adler that I wanted to interview them. I gave them possible dates, and when they declined, I acknowledged and confirmed that they said no. One of Glazer-Weil's partners is Robert Shapiro of the O.J. Simpson trial fame. Your Honor, I ask you, is this the face of a hardened criminal? Adler was so desperate to try to harass, intimidate, and threaten me that their attorney actually tried to serve me the temporary restraining order by email, which isn't legal. And as part of their retaliation against me, they took my 2 films down off of Amazon. One really has to ask just what Marie Adler is trying to hide. Could it be that she's not enthusiastic about the possibility that a couple hundred other filmmakers might also want to revisit their contracts? It's ironic that with all the fabricated claims against me, the real threats and harassment came solely from Adler and her attorneys. Their bullying tactics with their high-priced hitmen didn't work, so Marie Adler carried through with her threat to sabotage the showing of Breaking the Silence on PBS, and lying to PBS, telling them that she was suing me. In her attempt to silence me, she once again silenced these 5 courageous young women who had already once broken the silence. Shortly after that, I was notified by her attorney that they had taken out a second temporary restraining order against me, which turned out to be untrue. Then I received a so-called settlement agreement from Adler's attorneys, with an extortive clause demanding that I neither say, write, nor ever make a film about all of this if I ever wanted to get my films back. It was loaded with other punitive clauses and unacceptable conditions, as you can see. Could this all be an attempt by Adler to hide the possibility that they've been diverting tens of thousands of dollars away from filmmakers with non-existent, unsubstantiated expenses, and leading their clients to believe that they now owe Adler money? Marie Adler even demanded that I pay her legal expenses and $80,000 that she claimed to have spent promoting my films, meaning just getting them up on Amazon. Remember, aggregators claim to do that for about $1,000 per film. And the real surprise is a filmmaker can actually put their own film up on Amazon for free themselves. I was also just informed by Ambiguous that Adler recently sent this email to all of their clients, except me, a 75-year-old, 130-pound, nonviolent man with no criminal record. Mama. Remember, I invited Marie Adler and company to be interviewed so that they could publicly address and rebut the information and claims presented here. They declined and instead resorted to these desperate and blatant attempts to silence me, to suppress my right to free speech, and conceal their own unethical business practices. You've seen what numerous other filmmakers had to say about Adler and Associates Entertainment. Of course, I wish I'd seen and known that long ago, because even with my experience, I initially fell for their empty promises, hype, and deception. Now, in my opinion, and based on my own experience, I say, Marie Adler and Adler and Associates Entertainment take advantage of hopeful, creative artists who are desirous of getting their films seen by the public. While I could have gotten my films back by agreeing to their suppressive, extortive terms, I felt that my own silence would be too high a price to pay for that. Though I was always reluctant to make this expose, I realized that by doing so, it might help save other filmmakers from making similar, very costly mistakes. Thank you for watching.